was G.A. Custer's cousin. So the reason we're starting here is I wanted to talk about Custer's last visit to Scio. So Custer, even then, he was a little bit controversial. In the Caddis paper, it said, so when Johnson and Lincoln ran, they did not run as Republicans and Democrats. Johnson was a Southern Democrat. He was what's known as was called a Union Democrat. This area here had a lot of anti-war Democrats that they called butternuts. Butternuts tended to be in ethnic areas, and there were a lot of Germans up here. So these Democrats, they weren't anti-union, but they wanted to settle with the South. And Johnson was a senator, and he was the only senator from the South who did not resign his seat. So when the 1864 election came around, Lincoln chose him as his running mate. So you had Lincoln a Republican, and you had Johnson as a Democrat. So needless to say, when Lincoln died, all of a sudden we have a Democrat instead of a Republican. They ran on I think it was called the National Unity ticket. So Johnson was having a lot of issues with the people in Washington, so he decided that he called around the circle, which was unheard of in American politics. So he would go to these train stops, and he would give a speech trying to explain his view, because he was getting so much negative press and he was having so much trouble with Congress. And he did ultimately get impeached, and he lost, he won, kept his presidency by one vote in the Senate. Otherwise, he would have been our only president that had been actually removed. So, at any rate, he did this tour, and he had Grant and Custer with him, and they pulled into Scio. And Custer came out, and apparently the crowd was pretty negative. And he got mad and basically said, "I'll never be back, and the president's not going to come and speak because you people are rude." Got on the train, kept his promise, never did come back. And when it describes it in the paper, if you read the Democrat Sentinel, it talks about how rude and ignorant and monkey-like the people in Scio are. And if you read the Republican, Caddis Republican, it talks about what a great crowd it was and what a great thing they did by running him off. And so then they went down to Caddis Junction, which was pro-Johnson, had a great meal at Katie's restaurant. He gave a speech, everybody was happy. And then, but Custer was controversial. So this was September of 1866. Shortly after that, they formed the GAR, the Grand Army Republic. And that was in Cleveland. And the paper says, Custer, he of golden hair fame, entered the tent, found no applause, turned around and left. He re-entered with General Rousseau, was smiling and bowing for cheers meant for General Rousseau. So, and then about, I don't know, he went out west in 67 or 68, right, Dave? Like Indian, when he started doing the Indian deal. 68. So in 68 it says, we hear that the golden-haired Custer is out chasing Indians. We hope he's a better fighter than he is a politician. So even back then, Custer was a little more controversial than we let on. He didn't actually become a hero until he died. I mean, that's not true. He was a hero in the Civil War. He was the youngest general in the Civil War. He did not get to leave with his class at West Point to fight in the Civil War because he had to stay for his first court-martial.
He was last in his class.
He was not last. He was third from last.
Okay. It was close.
However, after he died, the local papers talk about how he was in the top of his class. He was not. Their memory faded. He was mostly in the last of his class because he was apparently a prankster, not much for following rules and things like that. I don't know if he was academically last, but he certainly was in, well, he got court-martialed. You know, how do you get court-martialed, you know, before you're even an actual officer? So had it not been for the Civil War, his career probably would have been over at West Point. However, he was found guilty. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, because I didn't study this portion. He was found guilty, but they're like, oh, well, we need you. So they sent him down to Maryland, and the rest is history. He became famous after that. But his first, notice I said first court-martial, he had another one. He went AWOL to see his wife, and they, as a general, and they court-martialed him. No, he wasn't General then, was he? He was a Lieutenant Colonel. So the Lieutenant Colonel actually went AWOL because he wanted to see his wife. So he got court-martialed for that as well. So Custer was controversial then, he's controversial now, but he did never come back to the ignorant, ruffian, monkey-like people of Scio.
A relative did, though.
Yeah.
My maiden name is Custer.
Yeah, so this is Dr. Custer. Yeah, there's lots of Custers in this area. His dad had some brothers that stayed here. He considered Monroe, Michigan his home because his sister moved there, and he ended up he considered that his home, and Monroe, Michigan considers him a native as well. Their statue is about 6 times larger than ours. He's on a horse. He's on a horse. Right. All right, let's go ahead and move over a little bit.